Hello everyone, welcome to the Master of Architecture talks today. And we got Nick Elias today with us. Nick has worked at several practices like Foster and Partners and Haptic Architects. He currently lectures and tutors design units at the Bartlett School of Architecture in UCL and the University of Greenwich. He has led drawing workshop at Central St. Martin and Stowe Associates. He has worked on drawings and visualization rendering reaching international prize and exhibitions such as Royal Academic Summer Exhibition. Nick was on the recent winning team for the Norwegian government headquarter competition with Haptic Architects, which is claimed as Norway's largest state project in the last 50 years. He has been awarded the Rebel Civil President's Medal for his Master of Architecture work completed at Bartlett School of Architecture. He has also awarded the Rebel Donaldson Medal, the Symbolist Furniture Medal, and was awarded as a Rebel Bronzer Medal shortlist. Nick has previously delivered TED Talk on his architecture research methodology. He is active member in both practice and academia, which is manifest with his involvement in the new think tank Londonon as haptic ambassador. So I will shut up now and hand over to Nick.
I should caveat as well. This presentation that I'm putting together is a sort of, it's not a glitzy presentation, let's say, but it's about process as well as let's say how to communicate one's design. So it's very much in the visual, and it'll stretch between the commercial states and also academia, and I'll be showing some student work as well. So and my own. So I'm just going to share. Okay, so this is me. Yeah, as Jennifer explained, I do quite a few different things, and these are just some projects that I've worked on and where I've been. This is just some student work which I've done at the Bartlett recently. This is in a summer studio where you can afford to be a bit more spatial rather than building based. I just wanted to show this as well. I mean, this is a drawing that I did with a co-did with at Foster's. I was invited after my part one to join a. Can you hear something? Sorry, Nadia's saying that she can't hear. You can hear me? Is that right?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly, Nick.
Okay, I'll just carry on then.
Yeah.
I was invited by Narinda Sagu at Foster and Partners to be a part of a team called Design Communication, where we effectively drew up and started to experiment with ways of explaining projects that, let's say, were needed an injection of creativity or to start up. These are some drawings that I did in my fourth year. To explain that, you know, I do quite a few different hand drawings, but we'll also be talking about collage-based work because we each have our own skill. This is what I wanted to express. You know, it's not just that everyone can do big pencil drawings. So it's how to do it. And this is another drawing. I want to call it a drawing. It's just me trying to work out how many wheatos this boulder weighs in Norway. But in a sense, you know, I wanted to try and do a drawing from this, but I thought actually maybe this is just the drawing itself, because it's, you know, it talks about ideas behind the intentions of the visual that you see here. So yeah, it's good to work out, allow drawings to help you design and help you work out what's going on. They're not just pretty images; they're images of ideas. It was, by the way, 214 million wheatos, just in case you wanted to Okay, so I just want to talk about this project. Now, this was my 5th year at the Bartlett, and it was quite a lyrical project based on a narrative of Winnie the Pooh. I'm not sure if many of you know the book, but essentially it's about this bear who is anthropomorphized and is a living friend of Christopher Robin, the protagonist. So essentially, I use this story as an overlay on Slough to project an industry of happiness, because I found particular aspects within the story that related to well-being, and each of the friends in the story could be associated with a specific type of happiness, in inverted commas, that could then be destinations that you visit along a pilgrimage around Slough, based in 1920s, because it was a turning point for Slough in terms of industry, but it was a very hard industry. So my question is, well, can't happiness be an industry? And it was based in the time of rebuilding various districts and urban spaces because of the war, obviously. So build on the past with stories for the future. It was supposed to be quite a joyful and satirical response to how to rebuild a city, let's say. A turning point, yeah. So I mean, what I did was actually just look through the book to try and find spatial cues, places that that could represent parts of the happy journey. So here, these were, let's say, policies of Pooh Town as well. I wanted to qualify the experience in Pooh Town. So giving a sense of place was a big factor of feeling useful in this world, especially after the war. So having an embassy that you could call your own. Elements like the Strawberry Jam Festival, or let's say the Car Boot Sale of Anxiety. I mean, this is just a flippant, quite glib response to we are the products. We are a product of those that we are the products that we buy. I think that's what I was trying to say. So we become ourselves. Our own character is built on the association of the objects around us. So it's about hoarding, perhaps. There's an element to that. There's an element of commerce in the same respect. Being a part of a family by talking amongst and reading books to each other. So those are some elements that I extracted. And then I wanted to, apart from just qualifying it, I wanted to quantify it. So this is where I took images and made collages of various images that I associated with these elements down here, being happy, loved, etc. All parts of, let's say, well-being. And then went back to a user group and asked them whether or not these images resonated with them on those factors. So this is about trying to bring some science to the lyric. Also, you know, as a sort of master planning project, I needed to understand the site that was there. So here, I did quite a bit of research on where the most deprived areas were, and how to work on that for building a proposal. Noting in 1920s which existing buildings and zones would actually want to be kept and how they could be integrated with this big master plan. And of course, you know, if we're talking about architecture, it's fairly hard to assume that you're going to detail all of these elements. So I just focused on this part here, which is, you can see Christopher Robin, the outline, and it's in his head. So in a sense, you go on a pilgrimage around his brain, which is quite cheesy and metaphorical, but I think one has to be a little bit cheesy when you're talking about something so serious. Okay, so I'll just move on from here. So here are the policies of Pooh Town on the left as well. This is the map of the book in Winnie the Pooh. And like I said, you go around a pilgrimage and you visit each of the friends, which are outlined here. And these are just, I know they're just outlines which are put on the plan, but it's to give a sense of you are going through these characters. So the story to scheme summary versus the architectural manifestation, these are all of the elements that I initially picked out in the book. And yes, I think I've said that. So the question was, you know, if you could sail around the tears of Christopher Robin, because there's another part of the story where Christopher Robin was represented as being quite joyful and very happy in the story, when the reality was he was actually was living in the shadow of his father who wrote the book. So he actually, the reality was he didn't have a happy life, but in the book it was portrayed as he was fairly happy. So this is where, you know, perhaps we can be too, if we're visiting each of these friends on a day-to-day basis. We can become the happy Christopher Robin. I hope that makes sense. So I think now I looked at these sort of engagement posters, which I'll talk about in practice later as well, where it was quite important for me to relate it to the Metropolis posters that were synonymous of the 1920s. So here it's actually trying to lure you into the destination, and I wanted to work out how many pilgrims you might actually get potentially, and what a nice place it could be to work as well as live, because it wasn't just a place to visit, it was actually a place to live in. So here I did these super landscape drawings to try and capture the wide landscapes of the scheme. This is arriving at the station, which I'll just actually reference. I'm going to go back to. This is here, and we start here, and then we go around in a bottle and visit each of the friends. So I'll just go back here. So we're arriving at Pooh Station, and then we embark on the bottle. There was a reason for the bottle. I can't quite remember, but it was a particular. Oh, it was a message in the bottle that Pooh sent out in one of the stories to try and find help, because they were flooded. And yes, you can get into a costume of your own, and you start off on the voyage. Here, this is a treasure chest, which is actually where you dock for each evening. You go into a treasure chest because it gives a sense of excitement when you're on a quest to find treasure. And here you would actually sleep in the bottle and dock into the kitchen treasure chest. Here, this is visiting Owl's district, the library, where you get different ministries, which are the sections of the library: Ministry of Make-Believe, Ministry of Animals. And these are places where you can read a story with your family. It's about bonding and togetherness. You can pick a book from the tree. This is again another element of the destinations through treasure hunting. And this is where you basically taste all of the. It's a taste test for the elements that you can buy at the end of the pilgrimage, where the end is the gift shop at the end of the museum, in a way. In a sense, you know, this was all based around commerce as well. It was all quite explorative, where it's all quite happy, but at the end of it, it is just about buying something. And then here, I think I've missed out a couple because I wanted to show you some other stuff. But this is the district where you would actually buy the Kanga's Emporium, and then little bookshops and etc. You would land on these bubbles here, and you would pick up tokens and reading lists and everything to know what to buy. And then the Emporium jar. So that was some just some snippets from that project. I did quite a few of those long drawings, which are trying to take you on that pilgrimage step by step with some explanation. But I just want to show you now, this is a sort of what I like to call the warts and all part of presentations where, you know, it's all well and good seeing some of those images, but how are they made? Sometimes that's a question for students, and, you know, sometimes you don't really want to reveal it, but in a sense, I wanted to point out that it's fairly simple to get images out to explain an idea. Even if the idea is quite embryonic, you still want to try and explain it. So, you know, this image took me about a day and a half. So I wanted to get a sense of a waterfall, but in gold. So sort of, well, a honey fall, you could say. So I wanted to, so I picked this image where we basically got, you know, larger elements to the foreground, which looks like it's been broken off. So instead of seeing it as a perspective, we could see it as a flat image where this sort of feels quite like it's falling. I should say, so this is actually the beginnings of how I created one of those posters. Okay, so I think this is the a mask of that image where I'm just selecting, color selecting the yellow. And then what I'm doing is doing a really quick collage of this. And in a sense, it's just me holding the book, and I've put in a little bit of a CAD model, bit of foreground and the center with some people on it. And this is, I had this vision that was trying to explore the reality of the book as well, let's say the fictitious nature of the book as a reality, trying to lure it out. And I just wanted to add to that collage because I thought maybe we should have some cheesy family in the foreground, you know, very happy about themselves, thinking about how wonderful it was in the book, and now they're actually part of reality. And this is the sense where, okay, I wanted to unify this. I wanted to make it look like a drawing effectively. So I black and white this image, grayscaled it, and then I brought up the levels so it would become quite contrasted. So if you imagine just a black and white drawing of that, and then this is a hatch, which is hand drawn, but it's just drawing a few lines of it. And then I selected the lighter areas of that black and white image, where it would be the whites and the light grays, and then I made a mask of that, and this mask goes on top of this hatch. And then I did a similar mask as a separate layer with the slightly darker one, so you can start to see all the darker elements are picked up in white. What is black doesn't go through, but the hatch is revealed in the white. And again, I did it slightly darker just to get varying shades of grey. And then again, the darker still. So when you overlay all of these masks, all the white will come through. I'm just going to flip back so we can see, should be, we can see that the whites are overlaid more and more around here, because that's where it's going to be darker. So you can see this. And it might be that I flip horizontal this mask, the hatch itself, but you can start to see it's forming a let's say a drawing effect. And then I think I built that up a bit more, and manually coloured in some the render. And then I just wanted selective colouring, which I'll talk about later. But all I needed was the yellows to come through. And then I added some more of these 2D elements, the bees, etc., and a bit of the text. And I believe this was for the sky. I wanted to get a mask on as a sort of graphic for this, for the clouds. And here you can see that I've put that on the same sort of hatch. I think it was a different hatch this time. And then I sunk that into the background. And then that's the final image where I'm playing around with the levels, etc. So I mean, it's a process, but this it actually, it might look like it takes a long time, but it was actually quite a quick collage, and then it's just about doing a few tricks in Photoshop to bring out the depth. So this is just another example. So I've got this thing on my screen. Please move this. Okay, I'll ignore that. Utility city. Okay, this was my fourth approach. So I think I mentioned this drawing. This is a trace, but it's equally as fine as a collage. I mean, this trace took, oh God, about a week and a half to draw. but the collage itself took an hour. So this is just about selecting the view. I do the tens of these to work out, or maybe it might be that, oh, actually I'll have a bit of this in that view and I'll collage something else. But you got to take lots of screenshots of the model if you've got something to work with. Likewise with here, some of these were kept. This is just full elevation, and noting that you can use more refined elements and images of other references that you've got in your reference library to help flesh out the image. So here is just a base for this image. I wanted to basically have an indication of an axo and then becoming the plan above. So I just set that up very roughly. And then this is a layer on top where I was trying to show this main building and then some of how it ties into other parts, well, replicas of itself actually in an urban scape. And then I'm underlaying that previous image. And this is me just whiting out, opaque some of these zones because I thought there was just a bit too much detail there. Refining elements in the background and overlaying them on top because that's why they needed a white base, because I wanted to show the proposal. And let's just go back one. Okay. Oh, and then this is where I wanted to put another one, but I didn't quite have it yet, and put a footing in the foreground, which was the actual part of the building. I'm not describing the building purposely because there's too much to go through. So here we are, and then this is me just selectively removing some elements to make it feel like it's actually lived in, because there are a lot of drawings that just show the clinical side of things, where in fact sometimes architecture is to be lived in. Okay, and then that's just traced, but the point is this is a collage, and I'm just overlaying some elements, and this is for a presentation drawing, sure, but it's still trying to show a lot of the detail of the process inside. So okay, now this is just me showing an example of what I've done, let's say recently, but very commercial. This is what I might get. This is an illustrator, let's say. This is what I might get from a client. And I'm just overlaying. I'm just trying to make an image here with trees in the foreground. So I'm just selecting them and shoving them on top. And then this is about, I would trace these at different layers. So like I said, you would just trace that background and draw it up, and then some of the trees in the foreground. And then this is me just on a single layer coloring it based on some references, and then adding a few layers of atmosphere and color dodge. So, I mean, the reason why I wanted to show you that last one was because that's sometimes the sort of work that we can find ourselves doing after an academic streak in part one, part two. But now I think, yeah, there are lots of other ways to do it. So this is why I wanted to show you this, the next part of the presentation, where, of course, we all know conventional drawings and orthographic drawings. This is courtesy of Haptic Architects. Plans and sections in quite raw general arrangement states, and then going into a bit more detail perhaps, because the point is, I think it's, even though it might be quite obvious, it's worth saying that you don't need to do every single drawing of a building. You can be very selective. You perhaps don't need to draw every junction, but if you give an indication of one part, you can understand the whole. And it's the same with academic drawings. And then a couple of details. These are also conventional drawings, visualizations, and I also think that let's say some of the more interesting drawings are when there's real an intention behind it. It's trying to tell you something. I would say these are commercial drawings as well. These are some engagement posters, public engagement posters that I did for Haptic Architects, and this is the starting point of the London Cancer Hub down in Sutton, where it was trying to talk about a collaborative network and a lot of green space in between each of these activities at a science cluster. Equally, this was the beginnings of, let's say, the material tapestry of what the Norwegian government headquarters could be. But it's just taking reference of the surrounding context. And these, you know, there are about 6 of different ones of each of these for the projects to help kickstart. I want to talk about some fast drawing. These are mostly sketchbook based. These aren't mine now. This is some student work. Pascal Bronner, and this, you know, developing into this where it's actually taking apart a scheme. And sometimes a sketchbook can come alive. I think it's important to understand that you can chop and change what you've got, and to develop iterations based on the first. Here's some work from CJ Lim. We're using the sketchbook to actually coordinate some collages. Now this is sort of interesting. This is a workshop I did somewhere in a school where it was from 11 to 14-year-olds, where we were trying to reenact some chapters in Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl. And here, this is, I'm not sure if you know the story, but effectively these the farmers that were digging out foxes that were trying to hide, and we were just trying to talk about the foxes' burrows and the tunnels that they were digging as being exposed, and then the rubble is sort of left behind here. And they were very keen, you know, because it was quite helpful to show one single idea in a collage. Here, this was bursting through some brickwork where you've just seen the mortar laid out here to go into the gin store or something, part of the story. But I was showing you those wanted to show you those in relation to this. This is what we printed out, and it was just about trying to make a collage. Didn't know whether or not we were going to use it, you know, any of these, but we just printed out 9 A3s, black and white, to do the collages from, and then it's just about cutting and a layering. That was part of the story with that process. Slow, oh, there the S. This is Dan Slavinsky. Now this is where I mentioned the showing the dirt of the architecture, the lived in. One doesn't just need to show that pristine end goal as an architect's vision. The architect's vision should also include use, arguably. Charlotte Reynolds. How am I doing for time? Yeah. And yes, this is more of CJ Lim's work, where I think actually some of you might have shown me these as references. I think it's important to have a clarity of hierarchy. It might be in tone, it might be in density, but here we have these. It's quite helpful to have these lines that are breaking up this dense matter. I think there's also another example of that where we have lines coming out from a focal point, and these clouds are sort of softening and creating an atmosphere here. And I think some of the key things, main thing actually is repetition of a sole element that's important to the story. It can really help. Okay. And here, this is another example of hierarchy where we've got a density, but then we have elements coming out from it to guide you in. This is Thomas Hillier. And again, so this is part of color as well, which is here. So the reason why it's the R that's colored, I think it helps to see it as an accent. And again here with the yellow. This is Perry Culper. He's an architect and a tutor in the States, often comes to the Bartlett as well. He was my external examiner, and we talked often about creating some mind maps of Poo Town, the project that I showed you previously, where these are some of his work, and he works with the students in this manner, where it's exposing the inner workings of your mind of the project. It's not necessarily of the project itself, or some parts of it are, but the important thing is to understand a mind map, the intentions of the project. So perhaps it's better explained, and here where there's a collage of your ideas and process, but it's essentially allowing yourself to open up and put down as much information as possible, and then trying to find coordination of the composition. So I mean, it is compositional exercise, but it's this is actually where sometimes I talk to my students about bullet point images, where you start with a list of elements of your building or your architecture, like I did before by extracting out these points from the Winnie the Pooh book, and those just are words. And then the dictionary is an amazing thing. You can just obviously find out the true meanings, but also find the synonyms, and try and expand those words using the definitions into visual elements. So they might just be images, or you might start to do a collage of what that word really means. And this is almost to start off a project, to try and explore more avenues. And then it can combine and end in something like this, where you have these bullet point images, but you have lots of other collages that are meeting and trying to flesh out the intentions of your project. Here, so this is in the color section. It's about accent, and this is indicating that these elements might be floating. This is again Thomas Hillier. Sometimes you can use shade to add to the drawing rather than light to just light it. It's not just about lighting the model, it's about trying to pick out other layers that might be beneath that, because obviously we've got white on white here, but then the shadow comes out. Likewise, using color or shade. This is images from the Mars rover to talk about the topography, different landscapes. And likewise in models. And I think we're coming to the end of the presentation here. This is Joseph Cornell. He's a great collector. He was a great collector, and these are just combinations of layering. But this is quite early, and it was about collecting and celebrating and framing bits. So I mean, I've been talking a lot about composition, and I think he was one of the pioneers of that. And then this is just, I think there's just one image here. Yeah. I think here with detail, it's about trying to find more stories within a single drawing. So it's a drawing of drawings, and that's why I think some of the Perry Culper work was quite helpful to me, at least as a student. It helped me try to when you spend longer than a minute looking at a drawing, it's working well. And here these are little narratives within. And that's why I think it's quite important to do quick collages, and as many as you can throughout the whole process of your academic year and in practice, because it helps you understand what type of architect you want to be. And obviously you could argue that the work that I've done is quite stylistic, but it's actually just a reflection on my thought process, and it doesn't necessarily reflect in practice work that I do now. I've just started up by myself, and I'm doing house extensions, and my drawings don't reflect in it as much as I'd like, but there's a difference. Yes, so I think that's it really, Jennifer. That I left it like that because I wanted to maybe answer questions and talk about the process if that suited people. So yeah, I could probably flick to a page or different pages.